Today on the MotoMan podcast, we sit down with the CEO of Alpina, Andreas Bovensiepen, who, unbeknownst to those outside of the BMW tuner world, also does about 1 million other things.
You're like the Where's Waldo of the racing car world.
Maybe, I don't know.
We discuss Alpina's humble beginnings as a mechanical typewriter company and how over a 60-plus year history, they branched into racing, factory tuner cars, and even wine.
Not everything was strategically planned as you may do today. Some things happened by accident.
Then we move on to crazy stories from the top of the car world.
He said to my father, I like to earn some money with touring car racing. The Austrian army wanted to call him for army service.
And his time as a pilot.
I said, I would like to fly to cross over the highest mountains in Switzerland.
And no story of Andy would be complete without discussing the little-known fact that he's also a champion race car driver.
In a diesel, we will not win, no chance. So they said, finally, if you want to race it and go really fast. This is really dangerous stuff.
I gotta believe there was a discussion, either you guys on your own or you with BMW, of what would an electrified Alpina or Alpina future that is electrified be? What was that? What would it have been?
Of course, electrification changes a lot because you need a completely different type of engineers working on it. With petrol cars, you look for maximum horsepower, and you had to develop a lot in this field. But now horsepower in an electric age is quite easy to achieve. But the main point, or the difficult point, is the range of the electric cars, especially if you go fast on a German autobahn, because then the range is very much as quickly exploited and goes down. So therefore, there's a lot of new topics where we have no experience, and it gets much more difficult.
So the risk gets significantly higher.
Risks, of course, to earn money, the risk gets significantly higher. And as you see in the car industry, still with the big manufacturers, say earn less money. Maybe they earn about 50% of the money they earn with petrol cars, because the whole technology, the economics of scale are not there. You are very much dependent on raw materials from China, on batteries from China, often from China, and therefore the whole business case is more difficult to calculate. And then finally we decided to make a contract with BMW AG to sell our brand rights.
Do you see any of that changing over, say, a 15 to 20-year period? The economies of scale, where the materials are sourced from, any of that, the risk?
I think it will get much more difficult because finally rules and environmental issues and safety system, all these kind of things get more and more strict, alert systems.
So for the avoidance of doubt, you're saying it's not going to get easier, it's going to get more difficult because the target's always going to move,
yes,
in your eyes.
Yes.
Okay, then let's go to a different part of this discussion, and I think clarify something, because people, when you look online, there's a lot of people that are confused. And what specifically was the transaction? Does BMW own Alpina? Or what specifically did they get out of the deal?
So BMW ask us, you have a very cool and nice brand. You have a long history in racing, but still in the luxury car market. You always worked on the big cars like 6 Series, 8 Series, 7 Series. So finally, it was the idea of BMW to get into talks with us. And of course, they give us some advice as well and said, we know the prices of electric components and these kind of stuff in the future. And it will be more difficult for you to earn money in the future. Maybe not in the next 5 years, but farther away when maybe the world is nearly fully electrified, and more rules are in place and less exemptions for the kind of small manufacturers. Still we see it today. For example, if you buy a 600 horsepower 5 Series in Switzerland, if you buy a car from big manufacturer like Mercedes, BMW, and they fulfilled in the overall CO2 European figures, then you have no penalty to pay. We are a smaller manufacturer. If we have a kind of quite similar car with a 600 horsepower, the customer has to pay about 10,000 Swiss francs, which is about $11,000, because we do not fulfill the same low target. But we cannot, because we have only the big cars.
So what specifically did BMW get in the acquisition of Alpina?
So finally, they were interested in buying the IP rights of the brand Alpina, that they can use the brand for new cars in the future from 2026 onwards. And of course, we have some kind of signature. We have the signature Alpina wheels. They are part of the deal. We have signature Alpina colors, Alpina blue, Alpina green, which is part of the deals. And we have the so-called deco set, which is not so much used in America, but we have a history with the so-called deco set, with the stripes on the car, with a certainly design from Alpina they acquired. So this is more or less the main thing, but they didn't buy the company, and they didn't buy the engineering capabilities we have and our people have and the experience.
So that brings us to an interesting point. I didn't know this until you and I spent some time talking. The engineering is not just for cars that say Alpina, correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So we have, since nearly 15 years, we are working as an engineering supplier for BMW Group. And of course, there's Mini and Rolls-Royce vehicles as well included, or BMW Motorrad.
Mm-hmm. So is there an example of a car you can talk about on camera that you tuned that doesn't say Alpina?
Yes, we worked on several cars for the mini fleet. Still we worked on a suspension for electric Mini. And we sent some engineers to China as well, because there's a production of these kind of cars. And for example, some years ago, we set up a DSC system for Rolls-Royce.
So that gets us into a little bit of history. If we go back, give us like the overview of the history of Alpina. It started with your dad in like the 60s, but really it didn't start with cars. What business was your dad in at that point?
The Alpina brand was used by my grandparents in the end of the 50s, beginning of the 60s for mechanical typewriters. But it became clear that this business was too small, because still IBM was inventing the electrical typewriter. So this business got sold. And my father was never interested in typewriters, but he said, okay, the name Alpina is very nice.
Where did it come from?
Our company is close to the Alps. So
Alpina, it was about the region.
This was a region, yes. So my grandmother had the idea of calling the typewriters Alpina, and my father has taken over the brand name. So this was the thing, and he founded his company in 1965. So finally.
How do you pivot from a typewriter company to a company that's tuning BMWs?
Okay, so my father was always very much interested in cars, and he earned some money at the stock market, and still he was exporting some Volkswagen Beetles to America, because there was a very high demand. So it was a kind of gray market thing he did, and he earned some money. So he was early. He was still, as a student of engineering, he was able to buy a Porsche 356, not a Carrera, but I think a 75 or 90 horsepower tool.
Wow.
And then the children came and he said, oh, now I need a bigger car, but I don't want a Mercedes. A Mercedes is, it's too conservative. But the other cars, they lack horsepower compared to my Porsche, or the horsepower weight ratio is not good enough. But in Italy, Ferrari uses Weber carburetors, Alfa as well. Why not try to fix on a BMW 1500 the Weber dual carburetor kit and looking for more horsepower? And there could be, or there should be, a market. So then he did some guerrilla marketing, and in Frankfurt you have the big car show, but he was a student of engineering. He couldn't afford the booth there. So he went on a big parking spot and put a leaflet under every BMW 1500 car in 1964. And in the beginning, he was not thinking completely at BMW. He was thinking about developing carburetor kits, maybe for different brands, but it came quickly quite clear that BMW had a cool takeoff with some cool new cars like BMW 1600, 2002, and then he said, oh no, let's stay with the brand and even further change the cars, not only more horsepower, but better brakes, better suspension, oil cooling, 5-speed gearboxes instead of 4, this kind of stuff.
Now, from what I remember, you guys had a pretty cozy relationship with BMW AG pretty early. It wasn't recent. True. It was like, when did it start?
Okay, maybe there was some kind of or what helped a lot was that BMW they had the BMW 1500, but quite quickly, about 2 years later, they had a bigger car, the 1800. And a certain amount of customers, they were unsatisfied because they said, oh, if I would have known that 6 months later comes the 1800, I would have waited because more cubic inches is better. And then my father stepped in and still spoke to BMW. For us, for Alpina, it's very important that the warranty on the whole vehicle stays in place if we change the engine. So Alpina will warrant the engine if it is changed, but the rest of the warranty should stay in place.
And when did that start?
This started in 1964. So before the official founding, so my father was still ending his studies and then founding Alpina in 1965, but his first carburetor kits he sold in 1964, and still the BMW, some department, warranty department tested this carburetor kit, found it worthwhile, found it reliable, and then said, okay, if a BMW customer changes his BMW with this Alpina carburetor kit, warranty stays in place. And this helped a lot for BMW it was cool because it kept the BMW 1500 customers happy, still with their car they had, because they had the same horsepower like the 1800. And it was very, very good for my father getting moved.
So if I'm doing the math correctly, your father started the company, got it some notoriety, and entered into basically a warranty partnership with BMW in his early 20s. Is that correct?
Yes. I have to calculate quickly.
Because if he was engineering school in Germany, you're talking early 20s.
He was about 60. He was about 25. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so we go down the road, and then you start doing the Alpina trick to not just the 1600s, 2002s. The first one that came on my radar, you did a 3 Series with the decals, the stripes on it. That was the one to me, was a kid growing up in New York City. I thought that was like one of the most exotic things on the planet. My friends looked at me like I was nuts. They're like, that looks like any other car. I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is a special car. What happened from that car to, let's bring us back when you and I met 10 years ago with that B7? The world changed. In that BMW, they got kind of in competition with you, with the motorsport division, in making homologated road cars. What was the change at Alpina or was there a change at Alpina at that point, once BMW said, we're going in this direction?
Yes, of course. But the next step first was then when you did this kind of tuning, and it was really tuning at the time, that tuning was often unreliable, loud, noisy, and so it was very important for Alpina to prove the quality. And so Alpina went into racing at the end of the 60s to prove the quality, and they won the 24-hour race at Belgium Spa 1970 with a 2,800 with a big coupe, and 3 times at the Nürburgring in 1971, 72, and 73 with Niki Lauda in a row. This was a proof of quality. But what you mentioned then, of course, BMW Motorsport was founded by Bob Lutz end of 1972. And in the beginnings, they were concentrating on motorsports. And of course, there were BMW Motorsport, but there was still the teams like Schnitzer and Alpina. And all these teams were racing a little bit against each other. But for the brand, the point counted, and to get European champion for BMW as a brand, of course, it was good to have the other teams as well to compete against Ford Capri, which was the main competitor at the time. But finally, indeed, when BMW started to produce road cars as well, and very sporty road cars, it came quite clear that they wanted to have the most sportiest BMWs, and it was never the intention at our family business to compete against, make a better M3 or better M5. No, Alpina went much more like in the luxury business. Still in the early stages of the company, in the 70s, we had the first 7 Series. The E23 was modified by Alpina. We had a petrol version and a turbo version, and therefore, so still Alpina developed on further from a tuning company into a company which did the most sportiest BMW, and then into a company which was more on the luxury side. So it's, when we did cars like the E21 with a 2.8 liter engine and 200 horsepower, this was very unique because the 323 from BMW was 143 horsepower, so it was 50% higher horsepower, and this was quite uncommon. And then BMW didn't have a V8 and V12 engine at the time, so the only solution was to get more horsepower, to use turbos. So Alpina had the first turbo. It was called B7 Turbo in 1978. And this kind of power delivery, it was more like a Bentley. It was like a starting jet.
Or torque.
And a lot of torque, and versus BMW M went into direction with the four-valve cylinder heads, get more horsepower, about higher revving. So it was a complete different attitude of gaining horsepower, and the cars were completely different to drive.
Was there a gentleman's agreement with BMW? Like, did you go in and sit there in Olympia Centrum and say to them, okay, we're going to take the big cars, you're going to take the small cars, and we'll call it a day?
For a very long time, of course, we both companies are working very friendly together, and as I mentioned before, we didn't want to make a better M car. So, of course, it was the idea of my father to go more in the luxury direction, and of course, he wanted to have more horsepower, and these were the kind of cars for the Autobahn. Okay, the turbos at the time, they had a certain turbo lag, but it was a very nice cruiser for the Autobahn, a very nice Gran Turismo, or not the race car for the road. So it was some kind of automatism. It was not everything was strategically planned as you may do today. Some things happened by accident.
What point did you guys start doing I don't want to say Bentley or Rolls-Royce, but you guys go out of your way to say the leather in the car now is like a Rolls-Royce leather. At what point did you change the interiors as well? When did that start?
Okay, to change the interiors started more or less nearly at the beginning or at the end of the 60s. because you hardly to imagine nowadays you had some kind of there were not the variety in options you could choose at the time. You had some kind of sofa seats in a BMW. There was not a sports seat available. So at the time, quite early, there was the first company for seats was a company called Shell, Shell, and quite quickly later they came on Recaro. So Alpina used the Recaro seats, or sometimes in the beginning the same seats they used for racing. So it was, they started in this dimension, and then it was important to have nice colors to divide from a normal Recaro seat. So we had the Alpina signature colors, blue and green, and they were used in racing in the 70s as well, or in the late 70s.
How did you come to those colors?
So
blue and green.
We had this... the green came because there was a sponsor. There was Dieter Quester racing a E9 CSL, and this was sponsored by an Austrian company, Görser Beer, still existing now. And so the car was painted green. And my father thought, this looks cool. Maybe we should have it as a second color to the Alpina blue. A lot of things happened by accident. There was not a strategic plan behind. And still, green was always good color, British racing green.
Absolutely.
And this kind of thing.
I mean, personally, I've had a number of your cars on the show over the years, and by far the better color is the green. Full stop. The blue is great, and blue is my favorite color, but that green, for some reason, is something different about it. It stands out, and when you add in the Alpina wheels, the design works in that color.
Yeah, and depending on the light, if you have a certain sunlight, you have really a color which is like a chameleon, which changes appearance, which sometimes it looks a little bit in a black area, more to the black or to a brighter green. That's fine indeed.
So now we're going through all this history of the company, but what we're forgetting to talk about is you. You really weren't working for the company throughout this history. You only came on later on down the road.
Yes, indeed.
So what were you doing during this? Obviously, you were a young man in the 60s and 70s, but at some point in the 80s and 90s, you start getting into the industry, but not just working in the industry. Like, give me a little bit of your Batman origin story.
Yeah, of course. I grew up, our house was on the premises where the company is established, the house of my parents. So you grew up with the racing, with the race drivers, and with late night works when they prepared the engines.
So like Niki Lauda would just come to your house and hang out and have a beer with your dad.
Yes, probably. Yes,
why not? Terrible for you, man.
Especially with Niki Lauda was a funny story I have to tell you, because he was still in Formula One racing, but he was not successful. He was in the beginning he was starting as a paying driver for the British garage teams like BRM, and before it was March. Mm-hmm. So he earned, and then the Austrian army wanted to call him for army service. So he said to my father, I like to earn some money with touring car racing, but I have to live at your little village Buchloe, because if I live in Germany, I don't need to go to the Austrian army. So he officially lived in Germany, but of course he traveled all the time to the races.
Yeah.
And he did both at the same time Formula One races, and the next weekend there was a touring car race, and the next weekend again Formula One. So he was both. But at the time he was a paying driver in Formula One, and the money he earned one weekend, he earned around 3,000 D-Mark, which were at the time it was maybe $1,500. Mm-hmm. For a race he got, but he invested it in his Formula One drives and maybe his living.
Wow. So,
but I grew up to come back to this. I grew up as a company, so I was very early infected with cars, and of course I liked it. Still, it was when I was my father brought me to school in the first B7. A test car. It was a 5 Series test car in 1976. The car was launched 78, and the acceleration. I thought, whoop! I've never seen such an acceleration before. So it was really breathtaking. But my father, on the other hand, he was very much the entrepreneur, patriarchic entrepreneur of the 60s. So I decided after my study not to work immediately with him and with the company. I thought it's better to gain experience elsewhere. Though at first I worked in a company which was producing carbon fiber parts for motorsports and seats for.
In the 80s you did this?
This was the beginning of the 90s. Yeah,
that's pretty advanced at that point. I mean, that's like space technology back then.
And then, then I had the opportunity to work for. I would have liked to work for BMW, and then they knew I had a lot of experience because I was a racing driver as well. So I started in the development for suspension at BMW and whole vehicle suspension, and worked there for 2 years, a little bit more than 2 years, and then.
So, for the avoidance of doubt, you studied engineering like your dad did.
Yes.
And so you went to this carbon company as an engineer and then on to BMW as an engineer.
Yes.
And then what did that, like when you turned up at BMW, what are you working on? Because I would think you're not just the normal young engineer. You're like, your last name is Bovensiepen, which everyone at BMW has got to know.
Yes, but finally it was... there was a lot of projects going on, and it was really interesting for me how big can our companies work and how the technology is in setting up whole suspensions from springs, dampers, anti-roll bars, tire development. So I gained a lot of knowledge. I had a certain knowledge from racing, of course, because with tire pressure, with tires, what is important, and setup of springs, dampers, rebound bound. So, but I even could get a deeper look in these kind of knowledge. But quite quickly, after 2 years, the BMW had there were the big main cars like 3 Series, 5 Series, 7 Series. But BMW founded there was one department which was starting to work, which I think it was in 1995. It was special vehicles called GS. And a later member...
Are they up at the Fizz in Munich?
Yes, I worked at the Fizz as well.
What that is.
And this area of special vehicles, besides the 357 at the time, was led by Mr. Göschel, who was later, Dr. Göschel, and he was later member of the board of BMW. And he got, there was a new thinking of, how can we, with smaller teams, how can we produce cars in smaller volume and earn money? And one of the first cars was a BMW C3, it was Z3.
I owned one. Yes. 6-cylinder.
And then it was going on with E53, the first X5, and another cool project, which I worked in the beginning as a suspension engineer, was Z8 or C8, how you call it.
Magnificent.
And so Mr. Göschel asked me, how do you want to come into our team? Because this is a very low budget project. It's a very cool project, but we are always fighting with costs. But probably you have some experience from Alpina, what you learned with your dad's company, and if you work on this project, you could work as a team leader for the weekly technical meeting, and that we keep down the costs. And this, so I ended up working for 2.5 years till 2000, when we had here in LA. There was a press launch. I was also with the press team here at Pasadena when there was a launch. It was a really cool time at BMW.
So you didn't so much get hired in the special vehicle operations because of your engineering background, more your accounting background.
Okay, but finally it's both. You have to. I give you an example. So the BMW C8 was an BMW AG project. It was not an M project. But quite quickly it became clear because the aluminum space frame was used for BMW, but it was a quite expensive technique. So the normal BMW V8 engine, the first prototype, had a 4.4 liter, 286 horsepower BMW AG engine. But then it became clear we need more horsepower, and then there was a target put in the engine of the M5 of the E39, the 400 horsepower engine.
Yes.
And then the BMW engineers came up and said, okay, now we have to do the gearbox testing to prove reliability for the gearbox for the car. And we need 3 cars to do it, and we need a certain amount of engineering hours. And I said, no, the gearbox has developed with the M5, and we don't need to do hardly anything. Of course, we have to do in our daily testing, in our testing routine, we see if everything is fine or not. But we do not make especially a gearbox testing, because the gearbox had been tested by BMW M with the M5, and it works well. And then some people of quality said, yeah, but if we have higher quality costs, okay, at least if we have to pay 2 customers after 50,000 kilometers a new gearbox, so what? We can save a lot of money in development.
Yeah.
And still an M5 customer will run much higher mileage than an C8 Z8 customer.
So why did they, I always wanted to understand this, why did they actually do the Z8 project? I mean, not just the Alpina version, but the BMW AG version. Like, how did they come about, let's make this very difficult, delicate car in a company and what was moving more towards volume?
To my knowledge, there was Mr. von Kronheim. He was he was at the end of his career, and there was and to celebrate this, BMW, other BMW board members, they brought down at the Côte d'Azur some nice BMW cars out of his history. I think it was around, at the end of the mid of the 90s, around this time. And they had a 507, which they could drive. And then Mr. Reitzler had the idea and said, wow, such a cool car. And he was head of development at the time. We at BMW, we should do something quite similar. And then he had some money in his development pocket to do a kind of submarine project. And he said to some pre-development people, okay, try to find out whether we can do aluminum space frame, and we tried to do a prototype. So he started a prototype. And at a later stage of quite parallel, there were some ideas for a new 6 Series. 6 Series and 6 Series convertible. And finally, they failed to get into production. And suddenly BMW said, yeah, but now if you don't do the new 6 Series, you have to be present. And Mr. Reitzler said, and Mr. Göschler said, oh, yes, we have some kind pre-development, a retro roadster. This could be homage to the 507. We could do it. And then they investigated it a little bit deeper. Yes, we do it. And then this was more or less the start of the project.
You said he had a little budget. Like, how much money did he have to do this?
Okay, to do,
Today, it's like $5 billion to make a car, just for the avoidance of doubt.
Okay, this was, there was a prototype was ready. This was not industrialized.
Yeah.
They did a prototype. This was with a 4.4 engine. And then they investigated more deeply. Can we do this kind of car? And I think what helped a lot was that this was not, you didn't need this big welding machines like if you have a big sheets of metal and you need the very expensive presses to press the metal bomb. They didn't need it because they have the aluminum space frame. So the part costs were quite high, but the development and tooling costs were quite low. And this was more or less the secret to get this project realized. And of course, I think Mr. Gerschel, Mr. Pichetrieder, and Mr. Reitzle, they were all car guys.
Yeah.
And they got a type of risk. They said, let's do it, and let's bring BMW and the Aston Martin League.
So they were like the modern day German versions of Bob Lutz.
Yes.
Like, let's just do it, man.
Obviously.
It was their Viper.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
I didn't even know any of this.
Still Mr. Reitzle. I met him every 6 months, and I met him a year ago. There was a celebration of Z8 celebration, and he said, "Oh, he had tough fights with a financial board member because he said, oh, we spent such a lot of money on a very low volume car, low production, only 5,000 units. I'm not a fan of it, and maybe you got through right now, but next time you won't go through with such a kind of project." But finally, later, everybody was happy to have this cool project.
It's tough to sell a project like that to nowadays. Very tough. Very few, and if they do it, like Ford, believe it or not, is the one that gets away with this stuff. They did the 0506 GT, then they did the 17 to 20 GT, but the way they did that was they just farm it out to Multimatic now. And AMG does the same thing where they did the AMG 1, but that's a Multimatic.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how they do it. That brings up an interesting question. Did you and or your father ever have these off the record meetings with Alfred Melcher and Grossersbach? Hey, state of the industry, just kind of get some insight what's going on.
To my knowledge, I think not really, because there were in a certain kind competitors as well in racing as with road cars. But of course, what happened was when there were sometimes cool projects coming up. For example, after the Ferrari F40, Ciucciaro with Ital Design, he was thinking of a car. It was called Nuts car. This was a silver design study, and first of all, they put in a 300 horsepower 12-cylinder engine from BMW. But then they said, oh, it's not enough horsepower, we need more horsepower. And we had a V12 from the 7 Series. So we said then, okay, you can have a 350 horsepower engine. And then they asked us, we have done this carbon fiber project. Do you want to bring it into reality? Because this is a one-off, but are you interested maybe to jump in? And then we were calculating this project absolutely through, but we ended up saying, oh, a Ferrari 40 at the time was 400,000 D-Mark, about $200,000, and this car, which was carbon fiber, very low production, would end up probably $250,000 and 500,000 D-Mark, and it's quite a risk. If we fail, maybe the whole company is in a critical stage.
Yeah.
So we did not decide to make our own car. We always decided stay on the BMW sound basis, which is a very good car.
All of us here at MotoMan are super excited to not only have the podcast back, but for it to be its own show. And there, we look to you for a little assistance. Can you help us grow the show? 2 really easy ways to do that. First and foremost, if you're reaching out via YouTube or other streaming platforms, you click on subscribe, notifications, or more importantly, share these episodes with your friends, especially on Reddit. Now, if you're downloading these episodes, listening via podcast platforms, we'd ask you to rate us. Stars are wonderful, but leaving a written review would be even better, especially sharing who was your favorite guest. So with that, I am incredibly grateful for your assistance in help growing this. And now, back to the episode. So for you and your dad, it wasn't always engineering and cars. You actually have an interesting title you hold besides CEO. What's that title? I'll give you a hint, racing.
Yeah, okay. I think it's good with my racing background, and this makes a lot easier. And still, still a lot of our customers they said, wow, it's so cool. If, for example, I had a customer from Japan 2 years ago. We hired the Zandvoort Formula One track in the Netherlands for 1 day to make a customer event with our new 5 Series, 620 horsepower 5 Series. And then we had different groups with race drivers, with our engineers from our engineering development. And the half of the day was through. And then there's a customer from Japan said, oh, can you give me maybe 5 or 10 laps and I can follow you? Because it's so cool. You are a CEO of Alpina, but you are still a race driver. And probably you're the only CEO who is a race driver. And I would love, it would experience of my lifetime if I could follow you and you give me instructions via the radio, how to drive and which kind of line and braking point I have to use. And I did it, and he said this was one of his best days of his life.
So specifically, like, what did you compete in?
So I early, of course, when you grow up with a company and we see the racing drivers and you meet Niki Lauda when you are a child, I wanted to do racing, and my father always said, "Oh, make your education, it's cool," and I want to do kart racing, but he didn't allow to do so. So finally, I ended up starting my racing career when I was 18, and I started first competing in kart racing, and I finished third in the European Championship. So then I applied. There was a German magazine called Sport Auto, and they did a competition. We were looking for three young guys who want to step into racing, and we like to help them with some money and with some races. And I finished third in this competition. So I won a whole season of kart racing, but not the smaller ones with 100 CCM. It was the bigger karts you drive on real racetracks, where you have a gearbox and everything and go really fast. This is really dangerous stuff. And I did it for a year, and I was quite fast as well. Won a few races.
Did your parents ever stop and say this Niki Lauda guy was a bad influence on you?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Of course, they would have liked, but on suddenly they realized they could not stop it, and so. So I went on and starting in Formula Ford and taking there was a Formula Ford festival in Great Britain, which I competed against Damon Hill. He was in the front row on the first race. There was like in tennis, you had a quarterfinal, semifinal, final, and in the initial races, I think in the first heat I started beneath in the front row beneath Damon Hill. So it was really cool stuff at the time. But I had I think in the final I had a crash, so I didn't finish in this. But this was crazy stuff. But I went on in racing and and still
you went to Nürburgring as well.
Then I won. This was quite late. I was still working at BMW, and it was a funny situation because BMW. They saw momentum in the diesel engine, but they said, "Oh, for BMW customers is quite new, and it would be cool to do a 24-hour race to prove that still a diesel engine can be a fast engine." But of course, it was important to go 3.5 hours in a row without refueling because endurance was so good of the diesel engine. With 120-liter capacity or about 45-liter gallons capacity of the fuel tank. And, of course, it was important to have very good tires. And so I was working in the suspension department. So we were developing tires and with Michelin as well. And they said, can you do some tire development for the diesel race car? And I did it in France. And then finally they said, there was at the same weekend there was a Le Mans race. By accident, it clashed at the same weekend, and therefore the most of the BMW works drivers said, or it was 1 week later, we prepare for Le Mans. We are not interested with a prototype racing car. We are not interested on racing on the Nürburgring in a diesel. In a diesel, we will not win. No chance. So they said, finally, if you want to race it, do it. And I was part of the team with Hans Stuck and Mark West.
Like Hans Stuck, like super tall Hans Stuck.
Yes. So finally, we won the race, which was not a surprise so much to us, but due to the competition. But we had a long endurance, we had cool tires, and it was Nürburgring weather. It was sunshine, rain, always changing, and with a very torquey diesel engine, which had a torque of a V8 engine. It was very good to drive in the rain as well. And so finally, we won the race. It was cool.
You're kind of like, I don't know if you understand the reference. I don't know if it's a very American thing, but there's a book series, Where's Waldo? And it's all about where can you find Waldo? And you're like the Where's Waldo of the racing car world.
Maybe, I don't know.
Everybody in every kind of star you could think of, you have a connection to. It's kind of, I didn't even know anything about you. I didn't know any of this about you.
Don't overestimate this, but...
You know what? The other thing I didn't know about you until you walked in here. So what the audience doesn't know is this is our podcast studio. They know that our normal studio for our main episodes is at the airport across the street. And it wasn't until today that I found out you're a pilot as well. You're a fellow pilot.
Yeah, indeed. So I was always interested in everything to go fast, so it became quite early a dream as well from my side to make a pilot license. So I started to get a German pilot license at the end of the 90s. And then, of course, the fuel prices over in Europe are quite expensive. So finally, I got to know a guy who said, hey, come on, let's go to Arlington, Texas, take 1 or 2 weeks, and fuel prices are half as much. We rent some Cessna 172s, and you can fly around, and it's cool around Arlington, Dallas, Texas, and you can do your American license as well. It's quite easy. You need only a few lessons, and I did it. So I came more deeper into flying, and then later a friend of mine, he bought a Lance Columbia 350, which is one of the coolest single-engine planes, and very 170 knots plane, and he bought it, and I have flown it, in 06 for the first time, and I rented it very often, and 3 years ago I bought it from the owner in Germany then, and before I hired it all the time. But it's really cool. So beginning of August, I was doing a tour across Switzerland, and the weather was so nice. I was climbing up to 13,000 feet. Then I was asking by the radio, the Air Force, the center control, and I said, oh, I would like to cross over the highest mountains in Switzerland, besides the Jungfrau and Mönch. And they said, oh, you're allowed to at 13,000 feet. And I crossed the biggest glaciers, and I saw the mountain. So people climbing up the mountains. It was a really cool experience.
That's the thing people don't know about private aviation or general aviation. Let's call it general aviation.
General aviation.
Because I look at it for two reasons. Number one, you can do things that you can't do anywhere else. Like we do bush flying. I got a bush plane. So I can go land on dirt, I can land on grass, and I meet buddies of mine with other bush planes in the middle of nowhere, not but like 100 or 200 miles from here. Stuff you couldn't get to with cars. And then number two, it's like a time machine. People don't realize that, you take however long it takes you in a car to get from one big city to the other, you basically draw a straight line and you cut that time in half, and that's how long it takes you to get there in an airplane. That's the two things I love about airplanes.
No, so of course, I can use it for business meetings. If an airport is in the vicinity, and we have a second business as well, Alpina wine business. So I was
just about to get.
I fly to Italy or to France as well. It saves me time, of course.
You got a tough life, man. You build fast cars. You fly a fast airplane. And you deal in wine. You're kind of like the James Bond of the German world.
Yeah, of course. I was a lucky guy because my father put two hobbies into his career. First was the cars, and second was he likes very much the best food and the best wines, and there was really in the end of the 70s. In the 70s or end of the 70s in Germany, good food was a big portion of food. And then it started a movement, maybe driven by France and Italy as well. Oh, let's get some more look into high quality food. And then there was still good wines in Italy, but they were not in Germany available. And of course, there was a very strict Italian wine law. And if you would not have this kind of Nebbiolo grapes, Sangiovese grapes in these kind of wines, then you had only a table wine, which was the lowest, vino da tavola, the lowest segment. So my father discovered at a car launch in 1978 in South Tyrol, he discovered the Tignanello wine. And this wine was made, it was the first Super Tuscan, and this was made by the Bordeaux grapes, the famous Bordeaux grapes. And then he went on with the Sassicaia as well. And he said, I can sell it. Still, they are only a table wine, but the quality is so high. And I make the marketing and we will sell it in Germany. And until today, we are the importer. We have the importer rights for the famous Sassicaia, which is, it's one of the best known and best quality wines in Italy.
So you guys are an importer of wines. It's not that you have your own vineyards, that kind of stuff.
That's true. Absolutely. This is a big difference we have the engineering for the cars, but we have no Alpina wine. The company is called in the future as well Alpina wine, which we have the best brands from Bordeaux, like for example Margaux, Lafite, Aubryon, these kinds of wine. And
when did the wine business start?
It started in 1979.
So do you share that passion with your dad?
Yes, of course.
So I got to, just general business advice, like for the people kind of watching. If I get this correct, basically you went the hard route. You could have went in the family business immediately. You didn't.
No.
So you went on your own. You were kind of like, I don't know if you get the reference, but the original jazz singer, the one with Danny Thomas, the girlfriend could have given him the straight track to being a rock star. But he decided to go and work the clubs for a year and then come back to the girlfriend. You're kind of like Danny Thomas in this case. And then you managed this wine, first the car business. You went into the engineering business, both at a supplier and then at a tier one OEM. Then you went back and you managed this tuner company and grew it. Because if I get the math correct, you did like 500 of those V8s. But then you did 2,300 cars, 2 years ago? Correct?
Yeah, 2 years ago, 2,600, yeah.
Here you are, you run disparate business. How does one manage their time effectively when you're running disparate businesses?
Okay, this is a challenge, to be honest, every day. But to start with your first question, okay, if you learn it the hard way and if you have to work on it on your own, I think it helps a lot, because still, if I look back at my time when I was working as an engineer at BMW, I got a lot of connections to people still who climbed up the ladder within BMW. So I had my own connections, and still, for example, I lately was at the plant Dingolfing. And I met a guy who is now the leader of the plant, and he told me, "How? Yes, I remember we met in 1995 when we did a project together, because at the time there was Toyota. BMW wanted to learn about Kaizen from Toyota, and
just-in-time manufacturing,
and Toyota wanted to learn about suspension from BMW." So a delegation from Toyota came over to BMW, and I had to show them a little bit concerning suspension. And the other guy,
Is this the part of the story you tell me that you were hanging out with Akio Toyoda, who's also a racer?
Yeah, but no, that is beyond too far. This were some Toyota engineers.
Okay.
Akio was not part of this game. But I met him once on the 24-hour race at the Nürburgring because he was sometimes competing under pseudonym.
Yeah. What is it? It's Morizo.
Yes.
Morizo. And he names the G. What do you think of the GR Corolla? I just got to ask. As a guy who tunes cars for a living, what do you think of the GR Corolla? You get a GR Yaris, we get a GR Corolla.
I think it's. To be honest, I've never driven it. By what I read from the journalists, it is driving very cool, and it's looking cool. And it's cool that still a big company like Toyota has some kind of racing spirit to do it.
If we have time after this, a buddy of mine at Sling has a GR Corolla.
Good.
Okay, I'm going to try to get you behind him.
Very cool.
See if he's nice to you. I'll tell him who you are, and maybe he'll let you do it. Okay, so if you were to say it in like 3 points, how do you manage multiple businesses successfully? How do you do that?
Okay, I'm not working alone. We have a team of 300 people, and of course a structure of very, very good people. So this, of course, helps a lot. And then, of course, you gain experience over the years, and but still, of course, it's not a 30 hours week. Of course, I combine often holidays and business as well. But it's fun because if you have a business, you burn for it, and if I go to work, it's not like, oh, I have to work. No, it's being creative, bringing ideas to life, have fun with it. Try to make everything to the best suspension possible for a certain clientele. So it's fun and to have cool wines and good wines and to enjoy it and to enjoy life. It comes all together.
So you talked about reputation management as part of it. All those people you got to know when you were working your way up in the corporate ladder at BMW.
Yeah.
Has that turned into what you're planning with Alpina vehicles going forward? Like past December 31st, 2025, will BMW continue to plan vehicles with you, or are they going to take care of all the planning themselves?
So finally, they get our advice when they like to have it. And of course, we have spoken to them several times. But finally, we are not part of everything what they do in the future. So they decide, they have their own ideas. And of course, I think the Alpina brand in the future will be not completely the same like it was in the past. So to my knowledge, they will concentrate on the big cars overall, on the GKL Plus segment, which is 7 Series, which is X7, and they like to say own. They have BMWs, they have Rolls-Royce, and of course there is some space in between. They like to fill with the Alpina brand.
May I give you
in the luxury segment, but they have no. As to my knowledge, they have not a plan to. Still, we have a lot of. In America, we have still the big cars, but in Europe, we have 3 Series, we have 4 Series, and these kind of cars. As far as I know, they have no plans to do these kind of cars.
May I make a suggestion? And I'm being serious about this, and I want 10% of the sales because I think it'll go very well. Not everything will work here, but I firmly believe the B3 wagon and the B5 wagon, touring, whatever you want to call it, they'll work here. And I'll give you a business case for it. BMW now brings over the M5 Touring, which I got to be honest with you, and I love you guys, but that car is too heavy. They didn't need to do the plug-in on that. RS6, they bring that car over here. Mercedes, they haven't committed. They have an E53 wagon. They're going to bring an E60. The point is, all of them do anywhere between 500 and 1,000 units a year. And they're all $150,000, and they're all sold out, and they're all over sticker. That means the market, the supply is not meeting the demand. And I think yours are so much more unique that if you were to bring just 500 units over a year, of even just one, I'm not even getting greedy. I'll take just a 5 or just a 3, I think you'd kill it. That's my suggestion.
No, what you say is absolutely true and right. And still, we were investigating in recent years to bring over a wagon. But what really the difficulty was really that, we are always working on the base car. But if a base car is not in the market, like a wagon has no crash test in America,
It's expensive.
then it was too expensive to do all this homologation stuff to bring over, let's say, a 500 cars over here.
Even at $150,000 a copy.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it.
No.
So what's that number to crash? How many cars do you have to crash?
So we didn't have to crash so far. So I have no experience in this because we have always could use the BMW crash test. But if BMW with a base car or with an M car has not done this kind of crash testing because the European regulation is different to the American, then you have to do this front crash, rear crash, side crash, overall crash, bam, and quickly you need 5 cars or more. And this is
so is it $5 million, $10 million, $50
million? To be honest, I don't know, but I think maybe 3 to 5.
So my suggestion aside, as part of your existing relationship with BMW, have they shared with you what they want to do specifically with Alpina? Like, have they said, well, we're going to do an Alpina electric B7, or we're going to do like other models, say more in the U.S.? Have they shared that with you, like a product roadmap?
So, of course, they have shared certain things, and yes, they like to be in the luxury segment, and especially with the big models. But times are changing quite quickly. You know what is going on in China. The market is getting different, and still the whole thing of going into the future. 5 years ago, everybody thought, it's going very quickly into electric. Now the path is not as fast as everybody thought. So I think there's a lot of possibilities and changes to portfolios.
Is that a welcome relief at BMW, Alpina, and with you? The slowdown of this transition?
Oh, I think, of course, for us as a small company, it's better because we know the car guys, and we are petrol heads, of course, and I'm a big fan of electric bicycles, but I think with cars, I'm a guy who likes to accelerate hard and to go fast on a German Autobahn, and then batteries get exploited quite quickly. So yes, the acceleration of electric cars is cool, but finally the range is poor on a German Autobahn, and therefore I'm not a fan of the electric cars.
Gotta be honest with you, of all the things I thought I would learn from you today, you liking electric bicycles is not one of them. That's the biggest surprise, by far.
Yeah, but this is a combination of both worlds, because you can go into town without taking. I living in Munich, so you can go to town and it's quite easy, and you are at the fresh air, and you can combine both.
A little bit of history. So I don't know if we've just ever discussed this. I used to live in Munich. I worked for BMW, but about the same time you were working for BMW. It's just you were working in engineering and I was working in the factory, connecting the transmissions and the engines together.
Okay, cool.
And on the weekends, my friends and I, it was an exchange program for university, and my friends and I, we would go on the weekends out to the ends of the S-Bahn, and we'd pick our favorite spots. And one of them was Erding, which I still get. I have a place here locally where I can still get Erding, which is a fantastic beer. And then there is, what's the monastery? Oh, Andex. You ever been to Andex?
Yes, of course. Andex is not so far from us, maybe 30 miles. And of course, we have a lot of guests, especially from the US, to have, and it's cool to have besides we have a wine business, to have a cool and nice beer and to have the local food and have fun.
For the people that don't know,
small mountains.
Yeah, it's sitting on top of these low mountains, and you overlook the Bavarian. It's such a beautiful place.
It's very nice, yeah, indeed.
You walk in there not knowing anybody. You walk out with 50 new best friends. It was pretty amazing. Anyway, let's talk about the future, because now you don't have to deal with the BMW cars. That's not your remit anymore. What does Alpina do today, or starting in January 1, 2026? What are you guys going to start doing?
Of course, we keep the responsibility for our customers. We have built around 60,000 cars in total, and I expect 40,000 cars are still running. So we feel still responsible, especially to secure the spare parts availability for the cars from the last 12 to 15 years, fully and completely. And of course, we like to have still with elder cars to reproduce spare parts to keep customers happy. Of course, we are not in a position to deliver carburetor parts for cars from the end of the 60s, beginning of the 70s. This is too long ago. But still, for the turbo cars of the end of the 70s, we like to keep the customers happy, and still we developed a kit with a new ignition and a more modern injection system. But it is in the old case. It looks like the engine from the outside looks the same, but you have a very good injection and ignition, and the car drives better than 50 years ago.
So you kind of become like the Alpina Classic A business.
Of course, yes. I think it's important for a brand to keep customers happy, to live the heritage. If you have a cool heritage, and still BMW has a cool heritage with racing, with a lot of car lovers, meeting on racetracks, have nice stories, spend time with them. It's really cool, and we feel responsible to do so in the future.
Now, that's not the only thing you're doing. You are making a new car.
Indeed.
It's not called an Alpina. What is it?
So, of course, we are, as the world gets more difficult technical-wise and electric, hybrid stuff, a hybrid drivetrain is very, very complex. So we think in the future there's still a field for our family, going more into the design direction. Engineering, yes, but more driven by design, and less by technology. For example, a Porsche 911 is an icon beside the design, and it's not only cool and to feel happy and enjoy a car while driving. Even you can enjoy it while you look at it. So to have an even wider frame than in the past. And we are lucky to have our family name Bovensiepen unused, so we can go on with it. And a lot of journalists, especially in Europe, and customers know this family name. And this gives us a good platform. And now we decided to develop a first vehicle. And we thought if you have a new brand, it's very good if you can do a kind of cooperation, co-branding, and we thought, and still when I was working at BMW in the Z8 project, I had a dream once, because the Z8 was such a cool car, outstanding car, once to make a car with a complete new exterior design. And now more or less the time was right, and so we did a kind of competition with Italian coach-built famous designers, and it came quite quickly. It became clear that Andreas Zagato and his team are the right choice. They're coach builders in Milan for at least for about 106 years. They have a long history with cool brands like Alfa Romeo, Ferrari, Aston Martin. And we said to do a first product with a complete new exterior design, a timeless design, classic, with a long bonnet, with low front lights, a coupe shape with remembering a little bit of beginning of the 70s, a coupe without a B-pillar with retractable, completely retractable windows. This looks really cool, and we did a kind of car, and of course we integrated the typical Zagato design features like a double bubble, rear window and rear roof line.
Car, the whole roof.
It's really cool. It's a double bubble design derived with Zagato from the 50s, 60s. And it's a rear roof and the glass window. It's not a Lexan window. It's a glass window which is done in real glass and looks really cool and outstanding.
You don't make the whole car. Like, you base it off of a BMW, correct?
Yes, indeed. So the base car is a BMW M4. But to get a new roof line, and we didn't want to weld. We like to get a high quality.
Yeah.
So we decided to take an M4 convertible, remove the convertible, and have a complete new roof, which is a fixed roof. It's not a hardtop. It's a center fixed roof, and it's this gave us and the designer a lot of freedom to make something really cool looking new stuff.
And how does it work? Like, what state do you get the car from BMW? Do they give you a whole car?
So finally we are in a development phase. The car will go into production mid of next year. We have shown it for the first time at Lake Como near Milan in Italy, and now we saw it here in America. There's such a big community of really cool car guys. We should show it in Pebble Beach, which we did, and at Sequoia, of course, as well. And now we are investigate the homologation process with the authorities and then. But I'm very much I would like to make it a reality to bring the car to the US market as well. But we have to investigate crash testing and all this kind of stuff.
Even though the car is already homologated for the U.S. market as an M4 convertible?
Yes.
And will it come over here or be sold even in Europe with a BMW VIN or a Bovensiepen VIN?
Still, these kind of things are still under investigation with the authorities.
Okay, I understand.
What is finally cost-wise for us the best solution?
And what are you thinking in terms, like, when your dad started, he wasn't thinking big volumes, but then you went from, as I said, 500 on the Z8 Alpina all the way to 2,300. What are you thinking on volumes on a car like this?
No, I think finally we are going a little bit back to our birth steps because, of course, my father in the 70s, 80s, he was always thinking, okay, I like to make 500 cars for the whole world and stay very, very exclusive. And I then told him, I was working at BMW, and he told me and said, you should come to the company. It's time for the next generation, blah, blah, blah. And I said, if I come to the company, I have to be a member from the board from the first day onwards, and we have to enter America. If we don't go to America and Canada, I won't come because this is a market to go, and we have to go into higher volume. My father was always of the opinion, if you go back in the 80s, there was a 55-mile speed limit. And he said, why bring, say, the Americans cannot exploit and feel the nice drive feeling of a BMW Alpina if they are not allowed going faster than 55? This doesn't make sense. Okay, nowadays, often you can go 65 or 70. This helps a bit, but still, America and especially California and Texas, this is a big BMW community and a big community of car lovers, and you have to be there. But now, to come back to your question, over the time, the working together with BMW became more and more close, and the competition, of course, get more intensified. So we in the 60s we started and we bought complete BMWs and we put them into pieces and put them together at our workplace, and then we got a better and better integration starting at the end of the 80s. A longer rear axle, a bigger gearbox, a bigger brake disc from a 5 Series into a 3, and this kind of stuff. And but now with BMW going into the future with the Alpina brand, we go back. We on the one side we have the heritage business. On the other side, we are thinking small in kinds of limited editions. Very much design directions. And so finally we go a little bit back to our roots. So this kind of car, the Bovensiepen-Zagato, probably will be done in 99 units, depending whether we go to America or not, a little bit more, a little bit less. It's not finally decided. We will do it within the next 6 months. We will decide this. But I think it's important with these kind of cars that you make limited editions, that the value is stable.
You've never been on the show before. This is the point of the episode I always like to ask my guests. What are 3 aspects that led to your success?
Oh, I think it's the love for all what I do. If you are dedicated, if you're passionate, if you can make your passion into your profession, I think it's the best what can happen. I think this is very, very important. And of course, some kind of, let's say, German accurate precision helps a lot. Make things once and make them right on the spot. And attention to details, these kind of things. And of course, very important, talk with the customers and to know what the customers like to get.
I can't say I've ever gotten that answer from a native German or really a Bavarian cowboy, so that's a first for the show. Also a first for the show. A little bit behind the scenes, what the guests don't know is I practically tackled you and your wife on the 18th fairway of Pebble Beach because I hadn't seen you in a while, and I invited you on your family vacation to come here, and you very kindly did. So I wanted to give you a gift. However, what kind of a gift do you give a guy that makes his own touring cars, that tunes his own cars, that flies his own airplane, and makes his own wine? And I came up with a perfect gift. Are you ready?
Yes, of course.
Okay. This is special. This is homegrown and kind of in your wheelhouse. I will let you open it up, and you can show the audience what you got there. It's a little heavy.
Yeah, it's good.
But it's perfect for a German visit.
Maybe some bourbon stuff or some pale ale or something like this.
No, pale ale. Come on, now I'm giving a German pale ale.
This looks cool.
Come
on.
Is our...
This looks some Greek stuff.
It is South Bay Greek Festival homemade beer.
Wow.
So I am very involved in my church. And we do our annual festival, and we have a local brewery here, Common Space. Shout out to Common Space. They brew this for us for our festival. So this is a gift you can't even get, Mr. I have my own wine company.
Wow, that's cool. No, it's cool to and I'm very proud to take this to Germany and to
let me know what you think.
To share with my best friends.
Please do, and your brother and your family.
And I give you, it's a response how I felt it.
Let me know, sir.
Cool, that's really cool. Thank you,
Andreas.
Thank you so much.
I can't thank you enough for this. It's been an honor to chat with you and go through your history and learn about stuff that I didn't know. Until I see you and until we see them in the next episode. I always close my episodes. Bis später.
Okay, very much. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure speaking to you, and have fun going on here in California.